This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
Well, the thing is, if I drink whiskey, I will not be able to function.
Perfect. Let's do it.
That's it's happened before.
They've got the Wild going tonight, and they want to have that continue. But I think once
Where are you, Chi? Can you mute yourself? Oh my god.
oh boy, Juke making mistakes. I love it.
And so I had to train for this marathon.
Make sure you stay awake for the game tomorrow, too.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 283. A very successful weekend, Vigs, from a defensive game and playing a patient game to putting our predictions to shame, which we're just fine with if they sweep an opponent.
Well, I mean, all of our listeners are basically telling us, don't pick a sweep. Don't pick a sweep. So what do? We pick some other things, and the Gophers come out and deliver. And it was a really important weekend for them. So important to see it this time of year.
Oh, it was huge. It was just huge. Put Ohio State behind us. Even if we were to get swept this weekend and they were to sweep, we would have the point percentage over them because we won the yearly series, so we'd win the tiebreaker. So I don't believe they could finish lower than second right now, can they?
I'm going to trust you on the math. I'm pretty sure that's the case right now. You know, I think the coaching staff is happy to get out of that weekend playing well. I think it's surprising for a lot of people in the conference to see the Gophers finish with Ohio State, who looked like one of the most dangerous teams in the Big Ten, and now Penn State, a team that has given the Gophers some troubles. Lately, they've been able to pull out the weekends against the Nittany Lions, but it is one of the hottest teams in college hockey that they'll face at Pagula this weekend.
So let's go over 4-1 win Friday night. As kind of Chris Eckes described in his GPL article, kind of a defensive game.
And I think it was really valuable for Minnesota to get out of a game like that without really being in trouble. I know it was putting Pat Micheletti into a little bit of a doze during the game on Friday night. The broadcast, he kept mentioning how boring it was for him. But to see Minnesota play a game like that and not get impatient, not get bored themselves, they were focused throughout. And while it was a 4-1 finish, I think it was a much tighter game throughout. And I was pleased to see them not just force plays, because we've seen that happen to them in the past when they've got bored. I think when you turn the calendar to February, it maybe is a little bit easier to stay engaged. And after you've heard the coaching staff all week tell you have to be engaged and then deliver on Friday, I think the coaching staff was happy with that.
And then you get the 6-3 win on Saturday. A little more hairy on this one, Vigs. I mean, they had gotten within a goal, then they pulled away, and then a goal called back on offside on Ohio State to make it even more interesting. But they held on.
And just as much as I praise them about their Friday performance, some of the things Saturday made me nervous. On one of the goals, Sam Renzel gets on the wrong side of a player behind his own net. That player comes out and scores. The next goal, I think Jimmy Snuggerud just throws a pass across the defensive zone. It gets picked off, easy goal. And then the third goal, they win a faceoff, but they don't do anything with it. And guess again, Sam Renzel gets beat from the wall to the net by his check. And so those are the kind of plays that make you nervous about this team going forward. And while they had lots of good offense on Saturday, I thought their offensive presence around the paint was really good to see. Those kind of mistakes kind of even out the night for me. It's like all the things that you'd put in the good bucket of getting to the net, getting the ground game going, putting traffic in front of a good goalie, almost gets evened out with three kind of head scratcher plays where you're like, these are the things that you want your best players to avoid, and their best players stepped right into them.
Yeah, that Snuggerud play was, I was just like, what are you doing? I would say that the goals that Ohio State scored on Saturday were very impressive goals. They sniped all three of them. People were kind of putting some blame on Soulier a little bit, and I'm thinking he got beat by three pretty darn good shots.
Yeah, I'm not blaming the goaltender on those three goals. I'm putting the blame on the players who are making those mistakes. And at this point of the year, you really can't have your top players doing that very frequently. Especially in a game like that where maybe there's low volume offensive opportunities going both ways. You just can't give those up. If you look back to like Brock Faber when he played for the Gophers, he did not make those kinds of mistakes. You look at players like Ben Myers, Matthew Nyes, they didn't make those kinds of mistakes. They had gotten that out of their game at this point of the year. And so maybe one last lesson, or a little bit of a reminder. I think for this team to go far, those players have to be a little bit sharper.
For me, biggest plus on the weekend was the return of Brody Lamb, Viggs.
Yeah,
that was
forwards need a little bit of confidence. I think, especially guys like Brody Lamb who get a lot of their offense jumping on pucks and creating plays out of chaos. And for him to start feeling good about his game again, has got to be an important part for Minnesota. I think he was one of the surprises on this roster to me with his goal scoring and his point production. I feel like some of that's power play dependent. and we'll see what happens with the Gopher power play down the stretch here. They haven't been great. The penalty kill has stepped up the last couple of weeks. I think some of that might be because of the goaltender
and lack of penalties too.
And lack of penalties.
I mean, they had one penalty on they didn't have very many on the weekend. They had none Saturday night. Trying to think Friday night. It was a very good weekend and disciplined on the penalty end. It really was.
Yeah, and I know coaches talk about penalties a little bit like pitchers. Like if you have to go through the batting order 3 or 4 times, eventually you get exposed. Mm-hmm. But if you're only on the kill once or twice a night, you're probably going to be in better shape because the other team doesn't see what you're trying to scheme against them with.
I was also hearing, kind of at the end of the weekend, even though it was an empty net goal, it was good that Snuggerud scored as well.
He's been better this year with his emotions, but you could tell when he goes into a little bit of a drought, he gets a little tense. So for him to get a goal like that, he was going to make no doubt. The empty net goal before, they were passing the puck around a little bit too much for many people's likings, a little bit on selfishness. Snuggerud gets it. He's beelining for the net and putting it away, getting the point.
Yeah, Coach Motzko wasn't happy about that Hendrickson pass to, I think it was Lamb, who got that goal. He's like, you get free, put it in the net. Yes, it worked out, but he did make his feelings felt after the game on Saturday about that.
Yeah, and the first empty net goal I thought was a lot of Aaron Huglin work, and they take away the assist from him with that extra pass. It's just too bad for the new Papa.
He had a really good weekend though. He was kind of all over the place. He's setting Lamb up. He was key on that empty net goal. He kind of showed up for senior weekend.
Yeah, maybe this having a baby thing has been good for him. Maybe he's getting a little bit extra rest, and you're supposed to sleep when the baby sleeps. Maybe that's what Huglin's doing. He's getting a little extra shut-eye to get ready for hockey.
And his mother, Brenda, sang the national anthem on Saturday, did a fabulous job. You can go to our YouTube channel. We've got it up on there. You can listen to the entire thing. It sounds like, he did his interview with Mike Grimm on the Gopher podcast. I'm going to name it right now, but said he heard it might happen, but that he didn't know it was going to happen that night. Very surprised by it. He didn't know it was coming. And then I was shooting from the box in the first period, and you could hear the guys coming back to the bench afterwards. They're all like, that was amazing. That was awesome. So I don't think many people, on the squad knew that Brenda was going to sing the national anthem. So Maybe it pumped him up a bit, but senior weekend turned out pretty good. We've seen a lot of stinkers on senior weekend, senior night, but this one turned out okay. And it's still kind of weird with some of these super seniors. Kester, Nevers did it last year. I'm guessing Soulier probably did something last year too. So it's getting a little weird with these extra years of eligibility.
Well, on the bright side, where there's not going to be too many more of those coming up. This is one of the last years of the COVID players, unless there's some medical redshirt things going on.
Or is it? They might be proposing always having a fifth year.
Which, from a standpoint of the NCAA, fine. Most sports have a red shirt. Hockey doesn't because of the junior hockey aspect and the scholarship numbers. There's not really guys on scholarship who can afford to sit a year, from the coaching standpoint or the player standpoint. You get to campus, you want to get out and play. I do think this whole NCAA thing is going to be interesting for hockey. We're hearing North Dakota's not going to opt in.
Yes, that was my next kind of subject right there.
Might not opt in. Those schools, they want to have that roster flexibility until that gets figured out. So it's going to be complicated, I think, for the Big Ten if the roster limit is 26.
Ooh.
If you have injuries and whatnot, it gets real challenging to put together a roster. Minnesota went all the way through their roster with the illness and injuries and
look at last season. They had to bring in a goalie last season. He was a practice goalie, but they needed an extra roster spot because Area was injured and just multiple things stacking up at the same time. I remember we went to Grand Forks, both of us. I'm like, who's this guy? He's just added to the roster as another backup goalie and a practice goalie.
And I don't think it was official yet when we saw him in North Dakota. I think we had to do a little digging still to figure that out.
But that's what this new rules agreement, you wouldn't be able to do that, would you?
Not the way it's written right now.
Yeah.
The people who are deciding these things aren't college hockey people. They don't know. You look at the committee, there's only one person from a Minnesota hockey school even making these roster limits up. So I have to hope they get some guidance on how to make it almost like an NHL roster where you could put someone on an IR and add someone.
Okay. Yeah.
Put some rules in place because a lot of teams, they want to rest their goalie if they're hurt. So how do you practice? You've got all these NHL drafted players who are trying to get there and they can't even have a goalie in practice. They can't have an e-bug. Some of these things just don't make much sense.
Okay, so Minnesota leapfrogged Michigan State this past weekend, all due to Penn State taking 5 out of 6 points at Michigan State. We'll talk about this weekend in a little bit, but is there a team hotter than Penn State right now? Because I don't know if there is.
Yeah, and they were scoring nice goals on Augustine. These were not just trash, putting away the garbage. They were beating him clean on the rush, off of shots from distance. They're a dangerous team, Penn State. I think when they came to Minnesota, the coaching staff was a little disappointed in how they played. Guy Gadowski kept saying, Soulier said all the right things, great kid, wish him the best against everybody except us. I think he said that line about 3 or 4 times after the weekend. And you could just tell he was hoping for more from his team against the Gophers. And they figured it out here in the second half. With Fink as one of their top scorers, they're a dangerous team.
And they're close to leapfrogging Michigan for that last home ice spot, I believe.
Yeah, and I really think Penn State could use a win against Minnesota for their pairwise. They are on the bubble. There's a bunch of teams that are separated by the thousandths of RPI. So you would think 2 wins over Michigan State might help you a ton. It helped them, but just not quite as much to separate them and put them in a safe at-large spot.
It will be interesting to see, but very strong weekend from them as well. All right. Well, we don't have a guest this week, so we're kind of going to go through topics a lot quicker than we normally would. But it also means we're going to get to our sponsors quicker, Vigs. And Cub Foods, one of your favorites, I know for a fact, because you're always at your Cub for whatever you need.
I mean, if you need anything, Cub Foods is your spot. And they're one of us. They sponsor Pull Tab Sports. They're a big Gopher sports sponsor. They've got stores all over the Twin Cities, and they've got everything you need. If you're getting ready for a party, you can get all your supplies. You get your cheeses, your meats, your veggies for your board. If you need some jimmies, Cub is going to be a place. You come right in their produce section. They'll have it there for you. And now they've got all these liquor stores with wine, spirits, beer, your THC products that you're looking for. So if you're getting ready for the last weekend of the Big Ten regular season, you're going to have a little party to watch the Gophers on the road, check out Cub Foods, cub.com, get it for delivery, pick up, or stop in the store and shop like I always like to do.
And another new sponsor of the GPL podcast, Elevated Beer, Wine, and Spirits, Vigs.
Yeah, if you're looking for some crafty beer, spirits, THC drinks, gummies, check out Elevated. They've been around for about 10 years. A couple of White Bear Lake guys started them off. They've got low prices on the big stuff, too. So if you're looking for Bud, Miller, Coors, Mint Golden Light, you can get a case for $17.99. If you're into wine, you get the 3-liter black box wines for $13.99. This stuff is usually like $20 at other places. So check out Ryan and Tom. I also know they're doing their rare whiskey raffle these days. So stop into the store to learn more about that. I heard about it on the Sunday Morning Coming Down pod. So check them out. Local guys. They got a store in White Bear and South Minneapolis.
And of course, we thank Cub Foods and Elevated Beer, Wine, and Spirits for being a sponsor of the GPL podcast. Vigo's top 20 for this week. Michigan State seems to get to number one, and then they lose that week. We saw it again with Minnesota. So really the only kind of consistent teams that have been number one this year was Denver, and now you're returned to number one, Boston College.
Yeah, I think BC is in the good spot for the pairwise. They're in the good spot for Hockey East, and they're in the top spot of my top 20. We've just seen Michigan State, Minnesota, and now Western have little falls here in the second half, and it's really that top five. I see it very tight now.
Mm-hmm.
At the start of the year, I felt like there was maybe some separation between the top 2 or 3 and the rest. Now maybe it's expanding a little bit to the top 5. I've heard lots of good things about Maine. It was surprising to see Western go to Arizona State and falter. I don't think Western Michigan has lost in regulation in the second half of this year. Like they've been really strong, and Providence and Maine, also Hockey East teams. That's looking like the strongest league right now. I've got BU in there too, so strong Hockey East right now.
But not a lot of change this week. Penn State kind of jumped up due to their sweep, and Denver did as well. Ohio State getting swept kind of hurt them in your poll, but kind of what you had mentioned earlier, polls are going to start moving closer and closer to the pairwise. And like you said, the top 5 very close. It's going to move around here a little bit and there. Sacred Heart, Clarkson, Merrimack, Minnesota State kind of finishing out the bottom there. Right now, Minnesota State's looking like the only team out of the CCHA leagues.
Well, I think they're going to have to win the tournament to get in. I don't see
whoever wins
really
that
the
tournament,
scenarios. Looking at the math, I don't know if Minnesota State has enough to jump into the top 13, which is where you might have to get in that large this year, especially with the ECAC. Quinnipiac is probably their top team, and they're 13 in the pairwise, so it's going to be interesting there. And the bottom of the poll has just been hard all year.
It has,
and they just kind of pop in and they pop out. Atlantic Hockey, Sacred Heart, maybe they're the team, maybe they're not. Maybe it's going to be Holy Cross, maybe it's going to be Bentley. But I've got Sacred Heart in there right now. They were my pick out of Atlanta Hockey at the start of the year, and it looks like they might pull things off there in their regular season.
I see some questions here. Let's bring up one here. Chris L. Are the Gophers at risk of dropping out of the top 5? In the polls, I think they are. In the pairwise, there's not too many scenarios that they drop out of the top 4, I would say.
I mean, I think they can drop out of the top 4 if they were to split this weekend and then have trouble in the first round of the
Okay.
Big Ten. That's a scenario where if they're 2 and they play Notre Dame and they drop games there, that always kind of puts you at risk.
Okay.
I always look at the college hockey news pairwise probability matrix
Mhm.
for that kind of information. And, there are scenarios where they drop out of the top 4, but they're kind of few and far between. It very much looks like they will be a 1 seed. I'm planning on going to Fargo for the
Mhm.
regional because it makes a lot of sense for Minnesota to be put there. Even if they drop to 5, you could easily see like a Minnesota Western Fargo regional.
Mhm.
Like I could see that happening.
Another quick question by Egan here. Does Minnesota need to sweep to win the conference title? Technically, no. Most likely, probably closer to yes, I would say, Viggs. In theory, if Minnesota were to win Friday night and Michigan State gets 1 point or no points, Gophers are the league champions because they wouldn't be able to catch them. Is Michigan State going to do that against Notre Dame? Not likely. So does Minnesota need a sweep to win the conference title? Probably. Don't you think, Viggs?
I would think so. I don't think Michigan State will be dropping games in Notre Dame, but they could go into overtime in one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we're going to have a scenario where the shootout struggles by Minnesota comes into play with the Big Ten standings. And that just would not be very much fun for everybody. But, Minnesota controls their destiny right now.
They do. And that's kind of another question, Ryan K. here. Does Bob really want to win the regular season title, or does he prefer to play that first weekend? He's kind of always said in the past he doesn't like the weekend off, but hardware is good too. I don't think he's really gonna, however it goes, he's gonna get behind,
Yeah. I think the fact that he hasn't talked about it as much this year means he'd be okay winning the league and getting the bye. This team did have their struggles with injuries and illness in the second half. They might benefit from having a weekend off and then just having one and dones. The only hiccup there is if you lose that semifinal game at home, you're off again for the NCAA tournament. So that's always the sticky wicket right there to get through.
And Minnesota could be up by 4 points right now if they would have won a couple shootouts against Michigan State. But, actually, they'd be up by, they're up by 2 right now. If they were to have won those 2 against Michigan, they'd be up by another 2, and Michigan State would be down by another 2. So Minnesota would have a 6-point lead in the Big Ten race right now if it wasn't for those 2 overtime or those 2 shootout losses to Michigan State. I just saw that. Bobby Bauman made me think of it. He's like, anyone from the women's team that can be rostered as a shootout special.
Did you see Abby Murphy's shootout move earlier in the year where she came in and chipped the goalie on a slow toe drag move?
Oh, I think I did actually. It was phenomenal.
It took some moxie. Yeah.
It did.
If a Gopher men's player tried to do that, they'd probably miss the net on it. But I do wonder if we're going to see a shootout this weekend. It could happen.
It could happen. Where was the last? It was at Notre Dame. It was, so it's. I think kind of the interesting thing this weekend is, like what is going to happen elsewhere. Penn State, obviously if they can win, they can pass Michigan. So they're rooting for Ohio State to beat Michigan this weekend. And that series starts tomorrow night. That series will pretty much be done by the time Minnesota series starts this weekend. And then, like I said, you got Michigan State at Notre Dame. You would need Peacock to see that one. But does Jeff Jackson have anything left? I mean, what are your kind of thoughts on those other 2 series closing out the Big Ten schedule this weekend?
I mean, I think for Notre Dame, this has been a really tough season for them. It's got to be difficult for Jeff Jackson. I don't think he likes the current environment of the college hockey world with the NIL and the gentleman's agreement disappearing and these COVID players and fifth-year players, it's just not his kind of environment anymore, and that's why he's getting out of college hockey. He's not retiring from hockey. He's made that pretty clear over the year. But it's been a disappointing season for Notre Dame. They're usually a very difficult team to play against, and this year it hasn't been the case. They've given up a lot of goals against, and they just have not been very stout defensively, good in the face circle. It's just an anti-Jeff Jackson team. So, sometimes a coach has run its course.
Oh, Twin Cities hockey. It would be dandy for a shootout win to win the league. So they're playing.
I'm kind of quietly hoping for that.
Oh, jeez.
I'm quietly hoping for a shootout to win the league.
Oh,
That it would be on the line at that point, with the timing, right?
oh yeah. You know what you have to do. Oh.
And then maybe, the players take it a little more seriously or something. I think sometimes they're just almost worried about the shootout now that it's got the bad juju.
They're telling you, stop, Figo, stop.
There are no curses, although, if we pick a sweep, odds are it might not happen right now.
No. The students are storming the ice if that happens. It's at Penn State, so it doesn't really happen that way. I don't know. Either way, it's just a goofy stat that we just embrace because it is goofy, really. It's just such an unlikely stat, and we'll just keep kind of embracing it, huh, Viggs? You just have
That's right. It'll be interesting to see how the Big Ten shakes out. It is, that last home ice spot is pretty valuable. Michigan has been disappointing lately, and so I don't know if I'm expecting them to win games against Ohio State here coming up.
I still think one tweak they could have done this season, or maybe they could do next season, is possibly making that semifinal a weekend. And then just have the championship game as a single one-off. At least it gets you closer to the NCAA playoffs for those teams. Usually there's 3 or 4 teams up for those spots that, one or two of them are going to have a long layoff. We've seen it happen with Minnesota. Michigan State could win this weekend and they could lose right away. So they play one game in a couple weeks. Wouldn't be the case if there was a series for the semifinal.
I'm sure if Todd Milewski was on, he would tell us all the reasons with building scheduling and why that's a bad idea, why it couldn't happen. But conceptually, if you're not going to have an 8th member of the Big Ten join anytime soon, why not make that a best-of-3 second round? You're not going to have a single-site tournament where you can have all the games played. You're not going to have a team host a Final Four. You don't want that. So best-of-3 might make sense.
Because Todd was, I believe, as he's saying in a tweet in one of his articles that, if it turns out, I think it pretty much does. When they go to Ohio State, they have to play in the and not in the Ohio State arena because it's already used. They're playing in where the Blue Jackets play. Was it Nationwide?
Nationwide arena,
yeah. They're gonna have to play there.
Hey, so when your building's booked, Nationwide's on your side, and you can play a hockey game there.
Or if they didn't have a gigantic arena, if they only had something a little smaller, I don't know. Maybe it's just a pipe dream,
If they had a 6,000 seat arena that maybe the men and the women could both play at, since the women are going to be hosting games all the time, regular season, Big Ten, and NCAA, might give them a place to play. That'd be nice.
It might, but like it's been awful quiet on that front. We talked about earlier this season with Cappy a couple times, and it's really gone quiet on just the smaller 3,000 seat women's arena.
Yeah, they were supposed to announce their plans for the options to their board of trustees at Ohio State. They don't have a regents. I think they have trustees. They're a little bit more cloak and dagger on releasing their documents, unlike the U, which is like the most transparent place around, and you can find all their things if you know where to look. But Ohio State's been a little more coy about it. And I think a big part of that is because of the revenue sharing that's coming to NCAA sports and the roster limits. All that is taking priority. So I don't think you're hearing any of these big schools making big plans for facilities because they have $22 million they've got to come up with to share with the athletes. And it's not that the athletes don't deserve it. It's just it's something athletic departments have not planned for very well, and they're going to have to figure out ways to make that viable.
Well, it's just disappointing just because they kind of started talking about it 2 seasons ago, 2.5 years. It's been a while. And you can't just say something and then say, we'll get to it.
Well, I think everything's
you're the Ohio State. Suck it up. Be the Ohio State instead of the.
They are still one of the programs in the country that sponsors a lot of sports. I think they sponsor 5 or 6 more sports than Minnesota and Wisconsin, Iowa. So they are using that big budget to pay for those things, and they've taken care of a lot of their other sports. It's just hockey was next, and then this came in. And it's really hard for a lot of ADs to plan how they're going to move forward. But if there was ever going to be a time for Ohio State to get a hockey rink, it's when you've got a president of the school who was a Navy guy, who's a hockey guy. You know, that's the perfect fit. And they have a new AD. It should be a good time to build a hockey program there with a good building.
Well, let's hope so, because, you know, if any team deserves it, it's that women's team, for what they are playing in is worse than most of the high school arenas. Probably 90% of the high school arenas around here. It's just an awful place. So,
and yet they still win. So facilities aren't everything, right?
They must not be. It's kind of strange. All right. Well, before we get into this weekend, Gateway Fiber, we were at their big event, last week, Vigs, out in the Fish House. They're putting a big push in the northern parts of the cities, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, we rely on fiber for our podcast. When we were out at the Fish House, we had fiber internet. Everything went great. And if you feel stuck with your current internet provider using that 800-pound gorilla, pulling your hair out because Xfinity constantly lets you down, get something else. Check out Gateway Fiber, especially if you live in Blaine, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, Plymouth. Gateway Fiber is already there for you, and they're planning expansion throughout Minnesota. So if you're looking for internet and you're frustrated, check out Gateway Fiber.
And last but not least, Vigs, Lunch Bucket Hockey, one of our favorites.
I mean, if you need some apparel for your beer league team, if you've got a team that's got something going on this spring for youth hockey, check out lunchbuckethockey.com. They will put together some great custom jerseys for you. I think if you're still looking for St. Patty's Day apparel to wear around, they've got jerseys to hook you up with as well. A couple of local guys who played some Friday morning pickup hockey started brainstorming and came up with this grit and grind brand. And they've got all kinds of other apparel too if you want to support them. Check out lunchbuckethockey.com.
And, of course, we thank Lunch Bucket and Gateway Fiber for sponsoring the GPL podcast. We kind of talked about it already. Resurgent Penn State team the second half of the season, playing extremely well. Heading out to Penn State, Hockey Valley this weekend, Vigs. This is going to be a tough test, and not just a tough test hockey-wise, but maybe – excuse me, mind-wise, with Mr. Soulier finishing, excuse me, where he began.
Whew. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear Soulier's taken the net for Minnesota. He's got a bunch of consecutive starts here now for the Gophers, and the coaching staff is really confident in him. I do think going into a Penn State weekend to close out the year could be difficult mentally. You could tell when he played against Penn State at Minnesota how much it meant to him, how happy he was with how he played. Everyone was respectful about it. And I think going into Penn State, if you have to go through that 2 nights in a row, I think it's a lot mentally. And I also think on the flip side, if you're coaching staff, you might want to give Nathan Airy one of these starts just to get him ready. You never know what's going to happen down the stretch. Someone could get injured, someone could get sick, someone might have an off night. You want to have another goalie ready. So I don't think Bob's going to be telling everybody his plans for the weekend. He's very coy about that. But it would make a lot of sense to me if, Soulier got to play Friday and you had the option to play Airy on Saturday. Now, maybe if Soulier's lights out on Friday and says, no, Bob, that's my net. I want it again. After playing great on Friday, you have that opportunity. But I think you want to go in thinking, hey, maybe we want to get Nathan a little look at the puck this weekend.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been sick for weeks here. And Ryan K with a funny one. Welfare check, please, Barb. I've just been sick for a while. Yeah.
I finally got over mine.
Do we need to make a call? It's like this. I mean, you get those dry coughs. Not much you can do about it. So I appreciate people.
Doesn't seem to bother Ben Holden very much. He makes it through.
I've never even tried a cigarette. So no, it's just I've been sick for a while. Well, I was sick, then I got over it, then I got sick again. And it's just one of those things. You start coughing, just hard to stop. So yes, very emotional weekend for Mr. Soulier. He is the guy now, Viggs. I mean, it's gonna be tough for him. I mean, that's where he played 4 seasons. He played a lot of, that was his team. Yeah, it was great to be, play here, and they got a shutout against them here. It was great, but just a little different at home. So
yeah, it just makes too much sense to me to play another guy over the weekend. The other thing I'll be interested to see this weekend, how does Bob handle? He doesn't like to call it the bottom of his lineup, but let's be honest, some guys get less ice time than others. Does Eric Paulson come back to playing more that 14, 15 minutes a night, or does he play, the 7-8 minutes like he did this last weekend? He's a player that I think they hoped would help in the faceoff circle and could be a skill player down the middle for them. Maybe that's not something they're going to be looking for. Aaron Hughlin looks like he's coming back strong. Olive Moore had a very good weekend in the faceoff circle against Ohio State. So maybe you're feeling a little bit more confident with those guys to roll with instead of Paulson. We'll see what happens there.
Talking with a few people after the game on Saturday, though, Viggs, it's like I would mention that, and I go, "Oh yeah, guys, the Gophers did so much better this weekend on the faceoff." And this person says, "Well, Ohio State is worse than we are." So I'm thinking you kind of take the face-off numbers with a little grain of salt against Ohio State. It will be very interesting how it turns out this weekend, because we've seen it, Viggs. We've seen face-off losses on penalty kills, on power plays, in important situations. It's not always the numbers, percentages. It's when they happen, Viggs.
It's when they happen. And the one thing I've noticed about Minnesota on their face-off losses is they've been much better getting to their defensive structure, and they've been on time getting there the last couple of weeks. And that makes a big difference, I think, for a team, is when they're engaged and they're ready to go, rather than moping around after a loss or blaming somebody else. So I think that's a really important focus for Minnesota, this weekend's against Penn State, because once that puck gets to somebody in space, it's going to the mixer. It's going right into the crease, and they're going to be coming with pressure. And that's the other thing to watch for Minnesota at Pagula. When Minnesota was not very good there, it's because they were getting beat in that chaos hockey around the net. And I have seen that be an issue at times for the Gophers this year. Ryan Chesley, Sam Renzel need to be a little bit stronger in those situations. Cal Thomas has had a couple hiccups here since coming back from injury. He needs to be very confident in those situations. The one player that you don't have to worry about with Minnesota is Luke Middlestat. He has been a rock all season in these situations, and you don't need to worry about him. But these guys who have the big expectations of Thomas, Rinzel, and Chesley, I think that's a big thing to watch this weekend against Penn State.
Ooh, I almost had that sneeze on the air, Viggs. That was close. Oh, so we can't pick sweeps this weekend, Viggs. We just can't do that. Look at that. Barb bringing me candy to help out.
Good on the welfare check there.
Yeah, she did welfare check. That's nice of her. So we can't pick a sweep because when we're picking sweeps, it wasn't going so well. I honestly do think that it is kind of a split type of weekend.
I think we see overtime both nights.
Oh, wow. So you're
And I
thinking
think we
more of a
see-
four. You're thinking of a more of a 4-2 type of split this weekend, aren't you?
I'm thinking we see like a 4-2 split this weekend. These are going to be important points for Penn State. I feel like they have been playing a more defensive style the last 2 years and less of a crazy style like we did before. I think guys really thought about like what's the style that I can take and build with this team to be successful.
Okay.
And it's been less loosey-goosey with them, and they have been tighter. And I think, when they've got players like Fink who can score on the power play and special teams, you don't need to create as many chances as historically they have. So I think we see a tighter weekend than we're expected with Penn State. And we could see games being 2-2, 3-3 that go into overtime as, Penn State's going to be trying to secure those percentages, because any kind of positive percentage against Minnesota for them maybe gets them over the bubble and gets them into that at-large status. So I think we see close games. I am expecting OT on Friday with the Gophers winning on 3-3, and then a tight game on Saturday with the Gophers winning in the shootout to secure a Big Ten title.
Wow. I like that boldness right there, Viggs. Very nice. Patience, very important this weekend, isn't it?
Yes.
And we've seen the team do better at this. So patience, very important. Also, taking advantage of Penn State maybe being too aggressive and being more desperate. I'm thinking this is a chance. Maybe they make mistakes because they're trying to get into that spot. And Minnesota can't let those opportunities pass by them. So I'm still thinking split though. 3-3.
No overtimes for you this weekend?
No. Picking the split and sticking with the rest.
All right. I'm up for chaos. I want the fun. I want to see the shootout. I want to see them get the bear off the back of their last chance of the season of being in a shootout. Because I think if you're looking at Minnesota, the one thing you'd be thankful for is that in the NCAAs, you will not see shootouts again until next year. But I think it would be fun to see them get into one. I want to see Brody Zemer in the shootout. I think he's got a lot of history with USA, and I think he's, somebody who can break that curse. And Snuggerud, he's bound to score on one of these.
He's 0 for his career on shootouts. That's like 0-4 or 5. I'd have to check the stats. I've got him on GPL somewhere, but he's 0 for. He's 0 for. We know that.
He's got to break it before he signs pro.
Well, he has one more weekend to do it. So, that's it. It's either that or bust this weekend. So that would be it. I still think if he does it, wind up, take the shot from about 20 feet out. Just go for it.
No, I watched some shootout stuff, and they say the best way to come in is you skate to the dot, you kind of slow your entry a little bit, and you start pulling it across, and you watch that goalie, and they say, do they leave too soon? Do they leave a gap in their 5-hole? And you react to the goalie. And if the goalie's just going to back, go in the net, pick your spot.
Yeah, but how many times have they missed the damn net, Viggs? A lot of their misses are missing the net.
Yeah, that's why I like that low 5-hole shot as you come across. You just keep your eye on the goalies, back skate, and you watch that. You just got to have a little bit more of a plan. You can't just come in and all willy-nilly and just go crazy. You got to have a strategy, and you got to read the goalie. So I know they've been working on the shootouts a little bit here and there. Maybe they need to do a little film review and be ready to win a Big Ten title in the shootout.
God, wouldn't that be something, though? That would be something.
We can dream, right?
They're 2 points up, so they don't have much to work with, Viggs, because obviously they're going to lose any tiebreaker with Michigan State. So we'll have to see.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect a lot of help from Notre Dame, as we said earlier in the show. So, 4-2 might not be enough for the Gophers this weekend. We'll see what happens.
Anything else you got going on? Everything good?
Enjoy all that state hockey tourney section finals this week if you can. Some great games out there. We saw Edina get their spot, their 4th consecutive time.
Micheletti's Hibbing. Yep. Hey, what are they? The Blue Jackets up there at Hibbing? Aren't they? Gosh. What are the Hibbing? What's the Hibbing?
Now you're just going to get us in trouble now.
Well,
I don't know it off the top of my head. They're blue. Right. They got blue jerseys. We didn't do enough show prep on that. But we got a new team that could be in. Shakopee. We got Rogers. All kinds of fun stuff. I know Aldrich is going to be. Yeah, Blue Jackets. Good job.
Oh, man. You had me worried there, Reese.
Yeah, we had Johnny Pole's kids win it for the girls AA. That was kind of fun to see. So,
yeah, that was. We were up kind of late Saturday night watching that, and that was very entertaining. So, all right, Viggs. I think
a little bit of a super team.
You ready for a little bit of overtime? Nothing extended too much tonight. I'm tired. I'm
a little bit. I've got a fun beer that Tom's brought back for me that I've been saving patiently for OT.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Mm-hmm. Well, let's get to it then. So that's going to do it for this week's GPL podcast. We'll be back next week with Pat Micheletti at a Pat-friendly time of 7:30 p.m. For those of you watching live, stay tuned for a bit of overtime. For the rest of you, we'll catch you next week on the GPL podcast. All right, Viggs, what do you got?
So every 4 years, Russian River Brewing Company, who is kind of like the original West Coast double IPA, makes this triple dry hopped IPA, and it's Pliny for president, and it's hop care for everyone. And so if you're an IPA guy like me, like big beers, this is one of the best ones out there. So thanks, Tom's, for lugging this back and saving it for me. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Tom's, for that. All right.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like a great IPA. It's got good crisp flavors. It's clean. It's neat. It's hoppy. It smells really good.
Barb brought me all these little mints. I just needed something because it's just kind of dry.
Yeah, you were in trouble tonight.
It happens. We're live. That's how it goes. Mm-hmm. And then I barely got to that mute button right as I sneeze there. That would have been fun on the air. My vision was already starting to go. I was about to sneeze, and I just happened to click it right in time. So something light and fruity. I don't think that's that. No gummies for Juke. Yeah, man, there's no gummies.
Yeah, that could be a new show.
I'm not a fan of gummies.
Okay.
Just,
Hey, but if you want them, you go to the Cub Foods and get them there. So, unfortunately, this Pliny for president, you can't get there. You got to get out the West Coast for this one.
yeah, I'm just not a big gummy guy. It's just a weird. I'd rather just drink because I know what kind of the
You know what's coming with that.
you
Okay.
do. And it's not this big delay. It's just it's a slow thing. It's not something that just kind of hits you. And it's like, oh man.
That's fair.
Better from the top, I think. I don't remember much that night.
Sometimes when you go to Russian River Brewing Company and you get beers,
Yeah.
you get a lot of beers and you get a lot of high ABV beers. And sometimes you don't remember how good they are. Puckhound is Tom's. You don't know.
What? Yeah, I saw that. Why has Friday night starts been so lackluster? Friday versus OSU. It was about as ugly of a start of a hockey game as I've seen from Darren Bakken. And I didn't notice you put that in chat until just now. So, you did just put it
It's okay. I did just put in because I realized we didn't get to it. And Darren was so kind to reply to your post and give us a question. And hopefully he's watching. So he gets this lovely commentary from us. But I think the problem on Friday is they are told to play a smart hockey game from the start.
Mm-hmm.
And they are told, don't force the game. We are good enough where we can create opportunities when they present themselves. We don't have to chase them.
Don't put yourself behind the ball early.
Right. And so I think they come out with that attitude and they play maybe a little bit more cautious, a little more dump and chase, and the D sit back a little bit more than they probably should. And so they get put in these situations where the game kind of is slow to start, and then they start to either figure it out, or the other team gives them chances, or the other team gets a break, and then they're in the fight. I think the one thing you can take away from this team is they have been able to come back from, deficits early. This team is not lost in regulation very often.
No.
I don't know if you have it up, but what is it, like 2 or 3 times this year? Like all these games down the stretch here with the Gophers, they haven't lost in regulation in a while.
Let's bring it up. Give me a second here.
I mean, it's probably the Michigan State game where that was kind of a disaster, and the Ohio State game, which was a disaster game. But other than that, they've been pretty good all year. So
let me share my screen here in a second. Just give me a bit here.
That's also the one problem I have with this team a little bit is their D get in too much of a rhythm where they don't jump into play, and I think that's what should make Minnesota more dangerous against everybody else is they have D that jump in. And I think against Wisconsin, we saw them do that and really just pull away from the Badgers because their D were getting involved.
So, yeah, Omaha was an overtime loss. Win. 3-1.
Lead against Bemidji.
Yep, goal against Bemidji. Yep. Those were 2 games in at Compton that didn't start very well. They were coming back in those games. That was a shootout loss.
Yeah.
Shut out. 5-3 here. That was the third period out of gas. When there's that 5-1.
That was a no-show game.
This was an overtime loss. Blowout.
No-show game.
Sweep.
2 OT games.
OT games, yep. Sweep. So, yeah, there have not been many regulation losses. You are correct, sir. There you go.
Thank you. I do follow this team fairly closely. So,
and of course, I just happened to click something and I just went out of the whole stream there. That's always great.
That's okay. And I think Saturday they get a better game plan for where they can attack after watching the Friday night film. And I think they're just a little bit more aggressive because Killer is leading the film session and saying, hey, this is where we need to execute. And they maybe have a better game plan Saturday. And if they didn't play great on Friday, most teams play better the next day. This is the kind of team that lays down for 2 in a row.
Bob has them trying to play 2 styles of hockey and not lose games versus going out and winning games. Same thing did. No, I would say this year is different, Biggs. I don't agree with that. The games that they know have been tight. They haven't played crazy. They've just been patient. They've sat back and they've waited for their opportunity to take an advantage. That's the kind of discipline we haven't seen in previous seasons.
Yeah, and I do think the Quinnipiac game, they took a lot of chances to put pressure on the Gophers. I mean, they were bringing, a fourth player into the forecheck. They were pinching all the time. The Gophers didn't handle that pressure particularly well. When you watch back, the only player able to handle pressure and make plays was Matthew Nyes. And he created a couple scoring chances for Cooley and Suggerud that they didn't capitalize on. And if they do capitalize on one of those plays and extends the lead, we're not even talking about it. And we're talking about how great they locked it down and shut down. Really, they had a soft play and a bad play, and that cost them. But otherwise, they were executing a game plan. I know I heard Paul Martin talking about it where he wishes they just would have continued to play their style going forward and continue to press. But I think Quinnipiac did make that very difficult. And you saw Minnesota in that game. I don't want to rehash everything, but they just did not handle the puck well under pressure on the half wall and at the blue line. This year's team, much better at those situations. They're bigger. They're heavier. They can handle the contact, it seems, at a higher level. So,
got a text from somebody, and I actually heard this is a custom sweatshirt that the stats guys get made up. So during the season, I got this one, a full hoodie. You got one too, didn't you, Viggs?
Yeah, I got the gray one.
The gray one.
So the Ghost Fit hoodie.
They had a bunch of those made, the gray ones. I know some fans got those. And then there's a black one that I have that's like a quarter zip. Oh, so these are all kind of custom done through a local place, like you said, Ghost Fit. It's on here somewhere. Yeah,
I think it's a ghosty logo. They don't throw it out there very easily. So,
gosh, I thought I saw it on my arm here somewhere. Yeah, I'm sick. Maybe I'm just seeing things.
Could be seen. Maybe you did. Maybe Barbie gave you a gummy.
Oh no! It would take an hour for it to kick in.
That's right.
That's what got me the first time. I'm like, it's 45 minutes in, so I took another one. I'm like, and then the first one starts kicking in. I'm like, oh boy, I'm in trouble. Logo not on white one. When's the Unreal go? We wish.
Yeah, I think it's going to be challenging because of a couple things. One, Minnesota's a Nike school, and they have some CCM hockey equipment connections. So those are their big apparel people. And then Fanatics has the exclusive contract with Minnesota for a lot of gear. And then the third point is the Unreal guy, Michael Jordan, is a Minnesota State guy. If you look at some of the Unreal social stuff, he is all in on Minnesota State. So I think there's a little bit of bias maybe. He has worked with PJ Fleck. He has worked with a couple other athletes like Jimmy Snuggerud. But I think doing Gopher stuff has not been his thing. I think the Nike deal goes at least till 27, 28.
For the school, but it's different for like hockey next year. They're going to CCM like jerseys and stuff like that. So maybe at least that's something we've kind of heard. I don't know what they're going to look like. I don't know how. I don't even know if they really can be. It's just because I know they have certain rules. They're only supposed to get new stuff every, was it 4 or 5 years or something weird like that. But Maybe it's
I don't
because
think that's a rule. That's more of a guideline that they're
okay.
trying to do.
Yeah.
But I know the hockey program's a little different with their CCM stuff because they do get their sticks and skates and gear. That's their primary sponsor contract for CCM. So hockey's a little unique on that aspect. So
Steve Larson saying nice hoodies. He got one of the gray ones, so he knows what they look like. How long do you? Okay, we got through that one. Thoughts from Mote. Blue liners need to step it up offensively, or is Bob having them play safety?
I don't think they're telling them to hold back. I think these guys have the green light to push into the play when they see opportunities. You see Middlestat do it. You see Kester do it. You just have not been seeing Gruba, Rinzel, Chesley as effective at finding ways to push
Yeah.
offense. And, you know, if you're going to find a concerning aspect of this team, that's one of them because it's really hard to be dynamic if you're only bringing three guys on the rush. You kind of need that fourth guy to find a lane and contribute that way. And they can't be dumb about it. They can't just jump in at any time. They have to pick the right spots. And when Rizal was kind of maybe getting some Hobie considerations, it was because he was able to do that early in the year. And he found his spots to insert himself in the offense. And that's kind of disappeared the last 2 months. So it's challenging to figure out because I've seen Rinzel make more mistakes defensively and create less offensively. And so that kind of pulls away one of your strengths from the first half of the season, and you're not sure what you have there. So I agree it is concerning that they're not able to figure it out yet.
That Chesley goal was it Saturday night though was pretty sweet. That
They
was
can flash.
it it was that type of play. I think there were one forward got back, so he was kind of the third forward on that shift way across the ice and showed some extreme patience to ended up just having just that half a second to second patience. V's he had an open net goal and made it look like it was simple as anything.
And that should be a difference maker for Minnesota when they pull off plays like that. You just would like to see a few more of them.
So will we be able to get authentic jerseys? Who knows? Just don't know. I mean,
I would say it's more likely if they make the switch than it is currently because currently, Nike doesn't make these jerseys. They're outsourced and then they get delivered. So I think you're more likely to see CCM in the gold country shops and whatnot.
So I had this mentioned to me several times this weekend that I look like Guy Fieri, except mine's not dyed. Mine is old natural. So Viggs, I'm sitting in alongside the boards along section 17, shooting through one of the holes, in the third period Friday night. And, I kind of look over, the glass curves around and gets straight again behind the goal, but to the left of the goalie. And there's 4 students in the front row waving to get my attention. And I'm like, oh, they're looking at me. And then they hold up their phone with a picture of Guy Fieri on it. So they're good 30 feet away from me. And I just go like this, and they just start laughing their asses off. And then the next night, I get mentioned for Guy Fieri several times from different people. I don't care about Flavor Town. That's about mine's real hair. I don't need to dye it. Tommy Johnson, one of the stats guys, like, you should get some, frosted, you should get some tips or something on the end here. I'm like, no.
You know what you need? You need a shirt with flames on it. That's what you need for a Big Ten playoff game.
Or maybe I just need a Guy Fieri shirt, Flavor Town. Isn't that what is Flavor Town, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Diners, drive-in, and dives.
I don't know if I've really ever seen it. I mean, I've seen him on TV. I've seen him in commercials. I don't know if I've actually sat down and watched his show.
I was at Blue Door Pub for his appearance there, they bring in like some regulars to kind of give some atmosphere around the bar, and you get like free burger and pints and all that. And I'm not going to pass up free pints. So I was at the table when he had his Camaro, and he was out front, and he comes out and he talks to a few tables and shoots his scenes. And I think you could see me in the episode in the background, but I didn't get talked to. So
Jupe in a flame shirt would generate shootout goals. Yeah, probably not.
We'll have to get you one for Saturday, maybe.
No.
No.
Nope. I am not.
Maybe we can get you a bourbon that you can light on fire for a shootout.
Oh, wait, now you got my attention.
Yeah, get a hazmat, high-proof bourbon, light it on fire. Be like a sacrifice to the gods.
If they win the title off of a shootout goal, Vigs, we are going to go live as soon as we can and have a quick game recap and talk about that. He's looking at his schedule right now.
Look at my schedule. I'm gonna have to mark it down because I'm in. I'm done with my youth hockey season on Friday. So no more coaching appointments until we get to the spring hockey season.
Okay, in theory,
I've got a little
they
break
could do
here.
that Friday night, couldn't they? In theory, if Michigan State loses, they probably won't.
Yeah.
But if they lose, they need to get more than 3 points ahead. If they get to overtime, they're 3 points ahead. If they win in overtime, they would be 4, they'd be safe. But if they were to get to shootout and get that extra point, they could do it Friday night as well. So we'll try to get on the air if that happens. Jupe hates. I'm like, I'm not a flame shirt guy.
But it's not for you, Jupe. You're not a team player. It's for the team.
Oh my God.
I ain't got no room on my team for quitters.
Oh my God. Well, funny thing is I ran into one of those kids Saturday night. He goes, "It's the Guy Fieri guy." Good kid, though. Good kid. They're just having fun, and that's one thing I love about the student section these last 5 years. It's really picked up. They're having a lot of fun there, so we shall see. But maybe we do a live show if they win. Well, we might do one anyway, just for fun. But if they were to win it in a shootout, Vic, that'd just be too good. It'd be too good.
And as Soulier says, these guys are entertainers, and this is a show, and they want to put on a good show, and maybe they've just been building up for this moment.
And honestly, it would be too good if they lost the Big Ten title because they couldn't win in a shootout. They end up being tied and get the number 2 seed.
Which means more hockey at Mariucci. I know my son was telling me. He's like, well, if they don't win it, at least you get 2 games at Mariucci the next weekend, and then you get maybe another one. So
it's been nice to have him at the games, at the little media availability a couple times this year. He's been going with the Donald to the games, some of them, and he's had a chance to come down and just kind of see what post-game scrap's about. So it's been real nice, and they've let him down there because it's kind of a different experience for a kid to experience that.
He's a well-behaved youngin, so he knows the drill. He knows that there's rules to, behavior to follow. So he's enjoyed it. The 5 o'clock games, I think, are great for the kids. You got to have a new generation of students coming to hockey. So 5 o'clock has worked well for that. And the Fox 9 partnership.
I flag you down from the student section all the time. I get very weird looks from you because I don't know who people are.
Matthew, you got to come say hi.
Say hi.
Just flag us down.
Yeah, because I get looks all the time. I'm like, do they know me? Are they a GPLer? And now, do they think I'm Guy Fieri?
They want to take photos. I had somebody thinking I was one of the Charlie Barron's people. Charlie Barron's, like comedian. He does all his Facebook.
Him and
He's got his buddy from Boston, like Billy or something.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, "You're in the Charlie Barron's videos. You're the Boston guy." They're like, "No, I am not. Thank you. I'll take that though." He's like, he's very funny.
And most certainly where all my friends point to you taking out. Yeah. And we, both Vigs and I, we do get people saying hi all the time, and we have no idea who you are.
Or my husband listens to you. That's the other one we get.
I've heard that. I've heard that on the road.
Mhm.
We get that all the time. So we appreciate you, but we have so many people coming up to. I can't remember everybody.
I'm trying to, though. I really want to.
And then I met Mote this year. After he's been around forever. I think he was around on PrideOnIce.com. Mote was, and I finally got to meet him, and it's like, it's great to meet people. It's always great to meet people. And then I have people, they'll say, "Remember when we did this and this?" And like, no, but I mean, Barb has experienced it. We were at Old Chicago in Duluth, Vigs, 2 seasons ago when they were up there for that one game, or I think. And 2 guys come up, "Choop, can we get our picture with you?" I'm like, "Sure." And then they knew who Barb was. They're like, "Barb, could you take the picture for us?" I wish they'd send me pictures. I wish they'd send me copies. Hey, Mote, we took a selfie. Why don't you send it to me, man? I'll put it up. I'll put it up on the show right now.
And I was on campus last Thursday, and I was there Tuesday as well last week. So you could have seen me on campus. So I'm around.
One big happy GPL family. That is true.
And I hope everyone's making those plans for Fargo, because it's looking more and more likely that that's going to be the destination for this trip. And every regional is tough this year.
Barb just sent a text. "We can make you a flame scarf or something." She's got enough fabric. She said, "Just toss some on the floor in there." Where'd you toss them, Barb? Oh, wait a second. Hold on. It's out of reach. Hold on. I heard the door open and kind of close earlier. It was a little squeaking.
I heard that too, and I was like, "What
is that?
What going on there?"
Oh, you even heard?
Ooh.
Oh, it's a little upside down, but flame fabric right there.
Yeah, it has to happen.
Yeah, I heard it squeaking. Like, by the time I turned around, the door was closed, and she threw it. It went behind the little ottoman here, so I didn't see it. So she says, "And there's more fabric." She's got a lot of fabric. Yeah, look at this. It's actually a very large piece of. And she comes back and texts, says, "I'm sneaky." Well, you couldn't be sneaky because we both heard the door squeaking. So
it was an attempt at sneakiness.
Yeah. Headband, do a bandana, kimono. Oh, that's why we like you guys. Is that regional at Fargo's rank? Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does Gary have an evil twin? Guy Fieri is the evil one. And mine's all natural, don't forget.
I just had to catch up on our high school scoreboard. Hill Murray beat Roseville 10-rep. And they'll face Stillwater.
Well, okay, that's a
in the
section
4AA final.
A section
semifinal.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
Is always
that's
weird.
right. Yeah, that one's always later. That one's always kind of later than others.
So they'll play Friday at Aldrich, Stillwater, Hill Murray, which is like the John King Super Bowl. I hope he gets to see that one. Laverne is back in it, so hat tip to Brian Deutsch, former Gopher Hockey SID. He's happy about that. Northfield is back to the tournament. Joe Dezik's team loses to Orono again. They do not make the tournament. Orono makes it. St. Cloud Cathedral, Bob Motzko's favorite high school in St. Cloud.
They've been there quite a few times.
State. Moorhead took down Bemidji 8-1.
Ooh, that's a tough.
Spuds. Yeah, Spuds are really good this year. So
They are, and they've had a lot of heartbreak. I'll tell you that.
and then Hibbing did beat Cloquet, so Pat can be happy about that.
And Edina won. Yep, they beat.
Yep,
They beat Wayzata. Fargo. Let's see. The Fargo regional tickets will be expensive at first, but hold off on purchase. They will drop most likely because, well, if North Dakota doesn't make it, if North Dakota makes it, if they win their tournament,
North Dakota's not making it.
they could, but
I don't think they will.
They might.
There's too many good teams in the NCAA.
They might get killed this weekend. They're going to Western, and they've got some injuries, even more than normal this weekend.
Yeah, Brad's like they're down to less than a full lineup. Like 6 players won't be able to make the trip or something like that. So,
geez, when's the last time Hibbing was in the state tournament?
if Pat was up, he would tell us, but I think he's asleep already. We'll be podcasting.
He did retweet the podcast, so maybe he was watching early. Yeah, I don't. And they're an A team now, right? Yeah, that's an. Wow. What? Oh, now I just read that. I see why he kept it up.
I feel like that has been in the social media circles that they have some team chemistry issues.
Well, that's what happens when you just bring in these guys willy-nilly.
Yep, culture is tough when you have a lot of portal. Yeah, I'll be interested.
Well, the funny thing is,
got...
they hosted 2 years ago. Minnesota was there. They're hosting this year. Last year, when they went, they had to go to St. Louis in a high school arena with couple huge other schools. So I'm guessing tickets weren't great for that either. And they don't get in this year. Jeez. Might be trouble. They're not going to get rid of Barry, are they?
Well, Schlossman wrote that he's got a pretty good buyout for a college hockey coach right now, which compared to football coach buyout money, it's not a whole lot, but
Hackstall's not doing anything. and he says his home is in Grand Forks. He kept his own there. I heard that from Schloss himself. He goes, yeah, he's in town a lot.
Nope. Some people actually like it up there.
Well, it's a nice place to visit on a weekend, and that's about it. Can't believe she came downstairs and went through all her fabric just to find.
Well, maybe she
flaming
knew.
Fabric. Flaming fabric. I will not be wearing flaming fabric. Maybe I can make a little handkerchief out of it. Any predictions on the Hobie? I think Fink has been more impressive than Leonard. Hope he's quiet this weekend.
I would have a hard time not seeing Leonard be a favorite right now.
What's he been doing?
I think scoring lots of goals.
Well, I know, but I guess I haven't looked at the stats recently.
The chip stat for CHN has him doing very well. I think he's still leading that. Well, Howard and Fink have gone above him in the chip. But I think you're going to see some Eastern bias come into play. And Aiden Fink, of course, plays in the Midwest in Allentown, so he's not part of that Eastern bias. I think there's just a lot of energy around Brian Leonard.
Maybe.
I think Fowler has a good chance to win the Richter over Augustine for that same reason.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Augustine, I don't think his numbers are that dominating.
Let me see here.
Now, Augustine's now 13th in save percentage.
14th in goals against.
Fowler's got 6 shutouts, which is sometimes what you look at. Augustine's goals against is now over 2. It's 2.1.
What is Mankato
Ours,
doing down there with their
173.
goalies? Jeez. Alex Tracy at Mankato. Jeez. What?
System goalie.
Yeah, well, they beat Minnesota 2 years in a row. I'll tell you that.
Well, now Mike Hastings understands why it's so hard to have a good goalie in the Big Ten compared to the CCHA. The game's a little bit different. So I have a hard time voting for like a CCHA or an Atlantic goalie for these things. The leagues are just so different.
Boy, I saw this earlier. Let me see if I can find it. Someone's asking, was it the lack of recruits and how quiet it's been?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason it's been so quiet is because this was a while ago. I was going to bring it up, but we were on a flow about I think fire branded shirts.
Flavortown.
Flavortown. The recruiting thing has slowed down because one, we don't know how many of these guys are going to turn pro. If I was looking at the Gopher roster, Jimmy Snuggerud, I think he's going pro. I think he's signing at the end of the year. He's going. But every other player, I have questions mark. Ollie Moore. He kind of projects to be a bottom 6 guy right now. Do you want to leave school early to pursue that when you're going to have to probably play AHL to develop that style and trust? Matthew Wood, he's got a lot of commentary on his skating. Do you want to go work on that in the AHL, or do you want to do that here at Minnesota where you get chartered flights, catered meals?
I don't think Wood goes anywhere. I think I think he stays here.
Right, but he's a junior who's a first-round pick who teams generally don't want that player to play a 4th year because then they can go that loophole free agent. So there's that situation. Ryan Chesley, kind of an NHL body. I don't know if he's had a great year. He's not going right to the NHL. Sam Renzel, I still see lots of holes in his defensive game. If he goes to the NHL, he's probably going to go back and forth between the AHL and the NHL. You know, we saw Michigan State's Leshanov. He's spent a lot of time in the AHL. So do you want to leave campus early for that? Guys like Connor Kurth, maybe there's a spot, but he's not going right to the NHL. So you have all these players. Would they leave for that opportunity, or would they stick around? And so if you're Bob Motzko, how many spots do you actually have to offer guys for spots next year? I think Javon Moore definitely is one of those guys who's expecting to be on campus next year. Kvasnicka from the development team, he's probably going to be coming. There's not going to be too many open spots that they have to fill right now. And a lot of their freshmen they had this year are older guys.
So I saw this from you earlier today. Actually, it was actually yesterday, it looks like. Talking about, Faber, how good he's been, and how he wasn't the defenseman of the year in the Big Ten and wasn't an All-American and wasn't on the ice when they started overtime. I mean, it can go on and on.
I know, it's painful. Though I do understand why he wasn't on the ice because they had the top line. They expected to win the draw,
Yeah.
But, yeah,
well, the first draw wasn't supposed to also go into the bench either.
Yeah, that's true. But, yeah, I was just believe he wasn't in the top 10 that year and didn't make All-American. He's such a steady player, too unselfish.
Yeah. Can't disagree there, but I just thought that was a good one to show. And StreamYard made it easy just to quickly grab an image now and bring it in. So I like that new feature from StreamYard.
Just to go back on recruits, I think like Moore, Townsend, Mooney, Kvasnicka, Rombach, those guys probably are going to be on campus, but I wouldn't be surprised if any of them were told, maybe one more year,
And then maybe a Canadian comes in?
Yeah, it'd be it's definitely a goalie. It makes sense to bring in
I would
a
agree.
CHL goalie. So I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Okay.
But who knows?
Does Huglin or Kurth have a shot?
At pro hockey, I mean, I wouldn't say the odds are in their favor, but I bet they get contracts.
Oh,
And prove themselves.
It wasn't. I'd have to go for hockey stats. Or go for game notes, I should say. God, didn't he put out that the Gophers are have not lost a game when Kurth has scored a goal or something? Gosh, I thought that was out there somewhere. I'm looking now, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Go for game notes. Great Twitter follow.
Oh gosh, yes.
Or X follow.
X. I still say Twitter. I don't care.
A lot of people do.
And one final thing. Tony Check reffing Saturday night. Holy cow. As many of you know, Tony got hit with a stick, and it was not good. I mean, I believe somebody, I can't remember who checked him. I think it might have been Gruba. Actually, Gruba. So naturally, when a player's coming to check and you're back and you're facing him, you kind of put your arms up like this to protect yourself. Well, to the player's left was Tony Check, and his stick was up like this to protect him. And as the Gruba came in, it ended up putting the stick right into Tony Check's face, and it was right before Ohio State scored a goal. Ended up taking out 3.5 teeth. I say 3.5 because one of them broke in half. I did have a tweet showing kind of a replay of the video. He's still, as he's kind of going down like this, he's still pointing towards the goal for a goal. Picked up his chiclets, went over to the Minnesota bench. I was in the photo box, just happened to be at that time when it happened. And Sam Shabrowski was right in front of me. I go, Sam, you may want to wait, because they were about to drop the puck. They didn't realize Tony was over at the bench bleeding all over the place. They brought him in, temporary stitched him up. I got a good photo of him with some good blood coming down on him for the rest of the game. I didn't get a chance to speak to him then, but I did speak to him Saturday before the game. And he's like, still not feeling great. I'm drinking protein shakes through a straw because I can't eat. He was at the ER until 3 a.m. Friday night. And it was his last weekend as a referee, who he's been around basically 20 years, starting as a linesman in the WCHA, worked with Tomps, part of the stats crew. We know Tomps, whatever his ID is on in the chat, but worked with him for quite a few years, and he knew him for a long time. But boy, Viggs, your last weekend as a ref, and you get your face smashed, and then you come back and ref anyway. Wow. These are hockey guys. Yeah, yep. Yes, exactly. He is a hockey guy. That's the other ref was Barry Puckmara. So,
well, we give the refs a hard time many a night, but they take a lot of pride in what they do, and as much as they want to get the calls right, they want to be there, and they love the game, and they make a lot of sacrifices to do what they do. So,
yeah. So happy retirement. He's, like you said, I was tweeting about it because we hadn't heard if he was going to be back, and I know it's Derek. I didn't realize that Derek Shepard, former NCHC and obviously WCHA ref for a long time, and son of Greg Shepard, the old supervisor of officials, he tweeted at me. He's like, he's tough. He'll be back. He'll be in the night. And sure enough, he was right. Tony Check was in. So Papa Shep.
I think he had his.
I was going to say Papa Shep is still is still the head of referees in the WCHA for women. He's still at Ritter all the time. Every time I go over there, I miss him, but he does pop his head over at Mariucci every once in a while. I saw him in the Zam Tunnel while I was shooting a couple weeks ago, and I wish I had a chance to get over because you want to talk about characters, folks. Greg Shepard is the character of all characters. Talk about old school hockey guys. So, sorry, you were saying?
Well, I was just thinking maybe Tony Chuck was drinking his celebratory beverage at Saturday through a straw, or if he didn't need one because he had enough proof to get through it.
I hope so because, it was, I saw him up close and I showed him the photo I had of him. I go, this is not looking as like, no, I should be crying in that photo because he was in a lot of pain. I mean, you take a stick right here. And the thing is, it's not like you can wear a shield. You got to you got to be able to blow the whistle. So good for him though.
Yep.
You make it your whole career without any major injuries and then you get your face smashed in. And, after the game Friday, I was going through the Zam Tunnel and he was there and his parents were there and his wife was there and his kids were there. They're all looking at him going, what did you do? Oh, so yeah, people, as we get to know these referees over the years, Vigs, I have a hard time ripping on them too much unless they're really stupid. Then we'll rip on them. But most of the stuff is just human error stuff, human stuff that everyone is going to do. Gosh, you wouldn't believe how much these guys care, how much they love hockey. And this is how they've continued their love of hockey is by reffing.
I do get the sense that these college refs are very accountable for things and they don't make it up. I hear a lot of stories about NHL refs who almost like make up like an alternate reality to explain what they did. Most of these guys who do these Big Ten games or games at Mariucci, they'll say, well, I didn't see it. They just say, I can't call what I don't see, or this is how I saw it. They don't make up stuff to explain what happened. They want to get it right. They try to get it right. But if they miss it, they usually are pretty honest about things like that.
Unless it's goaltender interference for Ryan.
Yeah. Well, no one knows what goaltender interference is these days. But like the call on Saturday with the no goal on the offside, it's like, heck if I know. I was surprised by that one for Minnesota.
Yeah, because I think in the end they were looking to see which did it go off a Minnesota player's stick when it was still 6 feet out of zone. It kind of came together and it kind of went in. I think that's what they're really looking at, but I didn't know either. So
yep.
It probably helped Minnesota in that case.
Yes, it did.
Because man, they had some momentum going at the time. So
okay,
they look like they actually touched. I don't think they did touch up. No, it was offside. But I think what the refs might have been looking at, it was not just the fact it was offside, but if it had hit a Minnesota stick, then it wouldn't have been offsides, I think they said. But as puck crosses the line, the puck crossed the line before the guy did get out. So
we did not ask Bob after the game because he was very happy with what happened. I missed Steve Rolick, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry.
From what I heard, Rolick was out of there right away. Grabbed his stuff and went to the bus. He just left.
Yep.
So even if you had unless you were down there as the whistle went, you would have missed Rolick.
Well, I think he was trying to get in touch with Steve Miller to chat before he left because I know Steve Miller was on his way to scout. And so I wonder if Rolick was doing the same thing. So,
Miller was trying to get the coach's attention during when they were doing the lineup stuff Friday night. He was just kind of going like this, waiting for all the guys to see him over there. And then finally they're all kind of laughing. They start waving at him. So
another good hockey guy.
Totally. And you can hear him from 10 miles away. So
yeah, you can hear his coaching during the game. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's look forward to a good weekend, Vigs.
Can't wait. Can't wait for that shootout. I Hope it's for the title.
Oh man, that would be so good. All right, what do you think, V? It's time to go to bed.
Probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
Probably be a good idea for me.
Good night, folks.
It's been a busy winter.
We'll see you next week. Yeah, I got nothing, Viggs. You got anything?
Well, I mean, Killer did tell me he was being up with Rolik to go recruit.
Really?